Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Coming up.
1 assist and 2 Premier League goals. I think he'd probably be our player of the year, wouldn't he?
Give him a Bay Rise.
Yeah.
Jared Bourne. Build a statue.
Yeah, they're carrying him shoulder high through Stratford.
That wouldn't be very high for you, though, would it?
You couldn't hear what the VAR was saying. You can see him on the TV, and they were discussing. He was like sitting there in front of a screen. I'm thinking, make a decision. Still no decision. And there's poor Chris Kavanagh, still not involved in the process. He's not involved in the process.
Hello and welcome to Whistleblowers. The bad news is that Gordon Smart is not here today. You can almost feel the air disappearing out the studio as I say that. So you stuck with me. I'm Ian Ladyman, football's palest and shortest man. The good news is that Mark Clattenburg is here, dressed like a snow leopard today, Mark. I mean, this is a remarkable look. You're either going skiing or you're trying to, I don't know, blend into the background somewhere.
I thought I would blend in the background. Being back in England, I thought winter weather, winter clothes, and a lovely Christmas jumper.
I'm looking at that jumper and I'm getting Wham! Last Christmas video vibes.
You know why I'm wearing it? Because it was cheap and it was in the sale.
That doesn't look cheap.
It does not look cheap.
That does not look cheap. That's a quarter zip as well, isn't it? I like a quarter zip.
That's the type of sweater that that makes me want to stroke you.
You know,
I'm not going to do it.
Nothing's changed.
Ian, stop
We've
it.
got Ian, we've got Gordon, both leading the show, and they're all, every week, talk about me clothes.
Envy.
That's a good thing. Nobody ever mentions the clothes I wear. So it's good. You stand out, right?
But I want to pair them socks, by the way.
Yeah. You won't get run over wearing no socks, will you?
Yeah, I've got my rainbow socks on, which I like. In case you haven't picked up on guest number 3, Andy Dillon is here.
Hello.
They finally got us in the studio together, and we were hoping to sit side by side. But I'm emergency hosting.
Football's 2 palest and shortest reporters.
I was hoping to sit next to you, but there's a good couple of metres between us, but we can bridge the gap.
Yeah, but restriction order is still in place.
We can bridge the gap with a bit of love.
Next to me.
We can bridge the gap.
We can bridge that gap with love.
It's only took a few months to get you both together, by the way.
It is amazing how much I love this man when you look at him, isn't it? You look at him and you do wonder why and how. But I do absolutely adore him.
For those of you who don't often listen to this podcast, I know you all listen to it every week, but those of you who don't, I was once upon a time Andrew's best man. He got married to the lovely Hannah 20 years ago?
2003, so it will be 23 years this year.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember having to drag you to the altar because you were too busy at the back of the church chatting up her mates.
Just dropped all my notes, which I'm going to pick up.
Andy didn't mention that in a previous podcast.
Yeah,
Would you like to respond to this?
The photographs that I have of Andy's wedding to Hannah back in the day in South London, the best one is of me essentially being told off at the front of the church. I mean, most wedding photos, you're all kind of standing there smiling, with your arms around each other. I'm getting a bollocking. And it was because Andy accused me of spending too much time talking to some of Hannah's friends at the back of the hall.
That's a very loose term, talking to. I seem to remember you kind of doing the classic leaning on a post next to them with your sort of elbow cocked like the high girls. Sort of like, I'm thinking Joey Tribbiani from Friends, but without the looks and muscle.
How are you doing?
How's thee?
How are you, cock? I was standing on a box to do it. Anyway, so there we go, a bit of personal history there. So how are you both? How are your FA Cup weekends? Mark, you've had a decent result, Newcastle in the FA Cup, not so hot in the Carabao Cup.
No, but I enjoyed the Cup. Because everybody was negative about the FA Cup, and I thought there was certain romances brought back. I thought Macclesfield's performance against Crystal Palace, knocking the holders out of the FA Cup, was the big story. But there was other Mansfield, Sheffield United. There was some, and I think that's what everybody loves about the FA Cup. Everybody wants that drama. Everybody wants the fairy tales, the underdogs playing well. And I thought the FA Cup achieved that. And I thought, in Newcastle, went to penalty kicks against Bournemouth. Could have went either way, but it just brought the fact that the smaller clubs want it.
I think the Macclesfield result, obviously beating Palace, and also the Wrexham result beating Forest on Friday night, which was subsequently overshadowed. Really, I think they both gave us a little bit of a feeling back about what the FA Cup can be about, Andy, because it reminds people that little teams can occasionally beat the big teams, and when it happens, there's nothing like it.
It's my favourite weekend of the season, I think, more as I get older, because of that, but also, and as I think a lot of people are thinking about this morning, following that 5.5 minute VAR delay last night with no VAR in the FA Cup third round, everybody's back to spontaneity, aren't they? Everybody's enjoying it. Everybody's able to just relax, and it's wall-to-wall potential fairy tale stories from Friday night through to Monday night. It's just, as my late brother John would have said, it's kind of like Christmas for blokes. That's how we used to describe the group stages of World Cups, Christmas for blokes, because it's just wall-to-wall football, and there is a fairy tale in every one, and they're great games. They are great games.
Tell you where there wasn't a lot of romance, which was at the Etihad. I was at the Etihad on Saturday as City put 10 past Exeter. There were two things about that I briefly want to mention. The first was that the press conference afterwards, the Exeter manager was asked, what was the worst, Gary Caldwell was asked, what was the worst part of the afternoon for you, Gary? And he said, when the team sheet dropped. And I was a bit like, well, what do you expect, mate? You're playing Manchester City. I know they're not going to kind of play all of their best players, but they've got a very, very deep squad. I mean, what did you expect to find on the team sheet?
But what did Exeter want? They got the dream draw in the third round. They've been They played 2 previous rounds to get there. They've got the dream tie. What's the problem? At the end of the day, Macclesfield wanted to play it at Liverpool, Old Trafford, wherever they wanted to play. They're not thinking about the 5th round of the FA Cup. They're thinking about securing the club's future.
Absolutely.
The only sort of slight blot in the ointment for Macclesfield was I was hoping to go to see him play Woking last night and earn a few quid. But the game was called off. The FA Trophy was called off for a waterlogged pitch. I was hoping to see them see them chasing a cup double by beating National League Woking, or come crashing down to earth. Sort of like 72 hours after beating Palace. But waterlogged pitch. So there's an old-fashioned story from football. When does that happen in the Premier League?
Yeah. The life of a freelance journalist.
It's not much of a life.
You've had to come here to earn your crust instead.
I know.
Anyway, talking about FA Cups and drama and things that weren't overly romantic. You were at West Ham, weren't you, as they beat your West Ham as they beat QPR in the 98th minute, I believe, to get to...
I believe so. I wasn't keeping a close eye on the clock
to squeeze through. Let's talk a little bit about West Ham. A very difficult season. Again, 18th at the moment on 14 points in the Premier League, 7 points adrift of safety. Not won in the league since early November. It looks like they're going down, Andy. And what I want to talk to you about is what on earth is that football club on a match day going to feel like in the Championship? And I ask that question because it's bad enough in the Premier League in terms of atmosphere. It's bad enough when it's got 60,000 people in it. A, what kind of attendances would you expect to get in the Championship at West Ham? How loyal is that fan base? And B, are they going to get stuck there?
Talking about the loyalty, so there is an immensely loyal fan base. Teams like West Ham, Newcastle, and I know Liverpool are successful, but those kind of city working class clubs have a very loyal fan base. So I was at Wimbledon on Monday night, on the Monday night for the EFL Trophy with the under-21s, and there was a crowd of 2,000, and there were 700 West Ham supporters who'd gone over to Wimbledon, made a lot of noise. The problem that's happened with West Ham is that, like a lot of Premier League clubs, they have totally disregarded that loyal fan base and gone for the tourist money. So they've gone looking for that, for the transient fan. So now they've kind of farmed out, they've ostracised the loyal fans, not deliberately, but just by making the experience so bad at that stadium that people who've been going for donkey's years have just had enough, because it's so painful going over there most weeks.
What has the drop-off been? I'm not asking you for the numbers, but generally, what's the feeling in terms of, anecdotally, people that you know died in the wool West Ham fans? What's the drop-off been in terms of loyal fans who've stopped going on a Saturday?
I'll tell you this much. I've got a mate, you've met him, Wacky, my mate. He has been a season
ticket.
ticket.
All your mates have names like that.
All my mates have names like that, yeah.
They actually do, it's true.
He's a season ticket holder. And he bought a ticket for Sunday. And then he just said to me, do you know anyone who wants my ticket? I don't even want any money for it. I just can't be asked to go over there because it's just such a painful experience. And the drop-off has been really marked. So, as you probably remember, there was the protest earlier in the season against Brentford when the protesting fans asked people not to go. Nobody did that against Nottingham Forest last week, but hardly anybody turned up. So the estimates are that it was around about 35,000 in a stadium that holds 60-odd. So you can imagine what it's like rattling around in there. No atmosphere, miles from the pitch. The team's just about flatlining. It's just horrific. And so they've kind of alienated generations of West Ham fans by making that stadium so awful. And then next year, those tourists aren't going to come, are they? They're not going to want to go.
And before I bring Mark in, what do you think? I think you can't answer this question kind of statistically, but what would you say in the Championship next year, and they've got a home game against Derby on a Saturday at 3:00? How many people are you getting in that ground?
Well, they'll probably be Friday nights, won't they? They'll be doing a lot of Friday night games on Sky. So they'll still get decent crowds because...
What do you mean by decent? They're going to fill it?
They won't fill it. No, They won't fill 60,000. But they'll be getting, I think they'll probably get in the 30s, maybe a bit more, because the prices will plummet. Wacky again said to me, because he's quite cute.
But in the 30s, mate, that's half empty. That's half full.
Yeah, but that's a Championship club. I reckon 30 to 35. That's bad considering what they've had. Okay, but when you think about what they've done over the past 10 years, and it's so ironic that it's 10 years now since they left Upton Park. Yeah. It's kind of, and look at it, it's all coming home to roost. All those people who fell for all the guff when they left about it's going to be world class, this, that, the other, it's all coming home to roost. So my mate Wacky, who, as you know, he's quite a cute guy, said to me, I'm going to buy the cheapest season ticket next year, and I'm just going to walk around and pick my spot because I'll be able to. You know, you can do that now. So unless they start putting barriers up in certain sections, people will be doing that, buying a season ticket for 350 quid and go and sit anywhere.
That's like going to non-league football where you can spend the first half behind one goal and the second half behind the other.
But normally it's interesting because I've refereed at both stadiums.
Yeah, this is what I was going to ask you about.
And not West Ham in the new stadium. It was other matches. But it's interesting that you can get the concept of how it works. Normally, when a team builds a stadium, they normally cater for everything, don't they? They're bringing all of these groups, advisory groups, to make sure that the fan experience is one of the tops. Because if you make the fan experience one of the top elements of a new stadium, it's a winner-winner, isn't it, really? Because you get the fans behind you and everything else. It's interesting because when I refereed at Upton Park, it was a unique place. It was like, I'm not saying your fans give you the 12th man, because I don't agree with all that.
No,
Oh.
but we would have won the league if they
West Ham at Upton Park, there was such an atmosphere. They built the start of the game, the bubbles, the chicken run at the far side, all of these different elements was made West Ham quite formidable at home. You've gone to the new stadium, and I've refereed in, it's like soulless, even on the football pitch. And it must be hard for the players as well, where you're that far from the connection. You go to Anfield, they're on top of you. You go to St James's Park, they're on top of you. Even Old Trafford, they're still, fair, they've got the drop, but in general, they're on top of you. Chelsea, you go to West Ham, you're isolated. And I'm not saying, players that get paid a lot of money, but they need that connection as well with the fans, and probably they're not getting it, and the fans aren't getting it off the plane because of this.
But they need to know when they're not delivering.
But how do you solve that, Andy, then? So how do you solve? You've got the issue's there, the players feel probably disconnected, the fans feel disconnected. What's the solution?
I think the saddest thing to me about West Ham, because I'm a northerner, right? So I've got no skin in the game, as it were. So when I come to London, do my job to come to football matches. So you're not going to like this, Andy, but I feel quite well disposed towards Tottenham because we're a big football club, and
you were my best man.
And I didn't tell you they've got a great stadium, blah blah blah. Okay, I don't. Chelsea, not so much for reasons that we've talked about on the podcast before. Arsenal, I'd be more than comfortable with them winning the league. And what I'm getting at is West Ham, okay, back in the day, you'd always, if you were a journalist doing my job, oh yeah, I'm going to West Ham. That'd be good. Because it just will. Good traditions, probably be a great atmosphere, and something always happens, and look forward to getting there. Now West Ham, you just feel like, oh, it's West Ham. Oh, yeah. That's how I feel. If I go to do a game at West Ham, which I do, it's part of my job, I just think, oh, it's West Ham. It's pain the arse getting there. There's no atmosphere when you get there, and the chances are that the football won't be very good. And that is a really sad place for West Ham to be in, from a neutral's point of view. Really sad place. Let me ask you something, Andy, as a punter. West Ham's record in the market recently is not great, to
dreadful,
say the least. Our producer Will has provided me with a brilliant statistic here. West Ham has spent over £350 million on over 60
on
forwards,
a 5'5" goalkeeper
since 2010, when David Sullivan took over the club. They've only made a notable profit on 3 players that have been signed by the current owners over a period of 15 years. They were Mohamed Kudus, Dimitri Payet and Flynn Downs. But let me get to a player who may be on the move, Andy, which is Luca Paqueta. Okay, now we know about Paqueta's background, we know about the spot fixing charge of which he was cleared, etc., etc. To me, he looks disinterested. When I watched him play, I was there when he got sent off against Liverpool for sarcastically applauding the referee, then blamed the FA for that, which I thought was interesting. 1 Premier League assist in almost 2 years for Paqueta, 2 league goals in the last year. Is he really worth all the fuss, or if this bid from Flamengo comes through, should they just take it and get rid?
1 assist and 2 Premier League goals. I think he'd probably be our player of the year, wouldn't he?
Give him a big rise.
Yeah.
Jared Bourne.
Build a statue.
That's why, they're carrying him shoulder high through Stratford.
That wouldn't be very high for you, though, would it?
There's no need for that, was it? There's absolutely no need for that.
Shoulder high with his knees dragging on the pavement.
Exactly. So
sell him or keep him?
Sell him.
Right.
Yeah. There's been a lot of stories around this week about him being on strike and
didn't want to play against QPR.
For the record, I've done a bit of investigating. I'm told that's not true. I'm told he was in on Monday having treatment. He didn't play against QPR because he's had a back injury. He didn't finish the game against Forest previously, missed the game against Wolves prior to that. But none of that gets around the fact that he's just not been a very good player.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, if you remember, in Prague 2023, he provided that pinpoint precise pass for Bowen to go on and score that winner. And there were videos circulating at the time of him in midair, controlling the ball on the inside of his heel with Aaron Cresswell in the dugout, open mouthed at the skill that the guy's got. Yeah, he's gone downhill, but then so has the whole club. And this goes back to the recruitment. So to me, the club's been steadily unravelling since the day after that final when David Sullivan went on the radio and said we're going to sell Declan Rice, which we all knew was going to happen, but, he said it. And they've not recruited well. The grey areas are who's responsible for that. So, when you know what it's like, Ian, when a player's doing well, everybody at a football club will lay claim, I'm the one who spotted him, I saw him. When they're playing really badly, nobody wants to be connected with him. The recruitment's been atrocious. So the team has gradually been going downhill. And Will's stat about maybe making a profit on 2 or 3 players really is a great indicator of that. So players like Paqueta have been going down with that. Bowen's been off the boil for the past few weeks because there is a general unwinding and spiralling downwards of that club. Paqueta needs to go. He scored at Forest. There was a lot of speculation about him in the transfer window in the summer, right up until the away win at Forest, where, I don't know if you remember, he scored a goal and then made the gesture like he was calling his agent, wagged his fingers as if to say, no, I love this club. I don't think he's agitating as much as is being made out, but there are separate issues going on in the background that, he wants to go. He will turn up for work, from what I'm told. But players like him need to go. And in fact, they will go. He will go. Bowen will go. And I think Bowen should go come what may. Even if West Ham stay up, Bowen needs to go for his own sanity.
Yeah, I was still amazed that that Tottenham made that big play for Kudos, who they obviously signed in the summer. I think they should have tried to sign Jared Bowen instead. Mark, very quickly before we move on, as a supporter of a big football club like Newcastle, there are times as a fan when you recognise that however much you've loved a player, it's time. It feels like the right time. Would you say?
It depends, because if we were talking about Isak, for example, he was still loved and worshipped by the fans.
That was a unique
I think
situation.
if a player is shown signs and an offer comes in that, if you think that they're signing up for what, 50 million?
Yeah, I think it was around that.
50 million, and they're getting an offer of 35 some years later. Forget the Man City.
I think it's even less than that, what I've told. It's less than that.
But even if it's slightly less, at the end of the day, that's still reasonable transfer money. You would certainly get less if they kept him till the end of the season and they ended up in the Championship, because everybody knows you're in panic mode because you're having to sell him for financial reasons. So I think as a fan, you've got to make sure that you want players who are fighting for the club, and West Ham need players who are fighting for the club. And I think if a player isn't showing signs, then it's quite difficult. But I watched West Ham recently, and he's not. You can't blame everything on him, because there's 10 other players around him. There's only seems to be 2 or 3 that really are caring. I'm not saying caring, but I'm showing the potential that they want to fight for the survival. Because at the end of the day, it's survival, isn't it?
Yes, and they're also on their contract in their contracts. A lot of them will get a 50% pay cut if they stay and go in the Championship.
So they have got that. They have got that in the contract.
Yeah, it's pretty widespread throughout the squad. I still think all this debate about not fighting for the club. I think players fight for themselves. They don't fight for their clubs. It's a team game, but a selfish industry. And players fight. However, the problem that people like Paqueta and Bowen have got is that the players around them that have been bought aren't up to it. Somerville, there was a reason why he looked so good on Sunday. He was playing against a Championship side. So I think that was his first goal in 35 or 36 games. And it's a reason why, because it came against... I've seen him try to finish against Premier League opposition, and he's not quite up to it. I don't think we haven't had decent centre-backs for a number of years. You can go right back to Kurt Zouma. They've just not bought players that are up to standard, and no amount of fight, passion or commitment is going to change that.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we'll be talking also on this podcast about a bit about Tottenham and a bit about Manchester United in a while, and it's all essentially we talk a lot about the kind of minutiae of football and the details and the drama and the intrigue about football, but it ultimately does come down to what you just said.
Yes.
If you don't buy the right players, then you're fucked. Basically, you are.
I've had some great conversations with agents over the past few weeks. One of them, when West Ham beat Burnley and Newcastle, I said to him, "I'm hoping this will kind of galvanise them, give them some confidence." He went, let me tell you one thing. He said, "Nothing is going to make shit players good."
But I think Andy's hit the nail on the head to sum it all up. It all stems from the win in Europe, and winning that competition. The Conference League final. Everything seems to have spiralled. They got rid of Moyes. They've sold Declan Rice. They did similar to what Tottenham did, wasted all the transfer money when they sold Gareth Bale, but Tottenham could recover. It feels like West Ham are having that spiral.
It's so weird to think back on it now. That night when I was on the trams coming back from the stadium, and they were absolutely rocking, all rocking. I was there with my son, my brother, his son, and everybody was so high. Who would have thought that was actually the moment it's all going to start going wrong?
All of you probably would have thought that. All of you probably would have thought that. You're West Ham fans.
This is true, but we were giddy. Give us a couple of hours at least to enjoy it.
So in what can only be described as a cruel twist of fate, West Ham's opposition on Saturday are in just as much turmoil as they are. Thomas Frank's Spurs host the Hammers in what can only be described as London's mismanagement derby. And to honour the occasion, we are joined by someone who's not short of a Tottenham opinion or two, or indeed a bit of knowledge. Mr. Ben Bowman. Ben, at the risk of repeating myself, what the hell is going wrong at Spurs? And is this all a bit of deja vu?
Yeah, just a little bit. It feels like we've been down this path before. I actually don't feel like the Spurs-West Ham game at the weekend could come at a better time, because I don't think the mismanagement of both clubs has been more in the spotlight probably than it is now. Obviously, West Ham in a relegation battle themselves. Spurs not too far away from it. Obviously, the second consecutive season when we find ourselves in a very similar situation in the league. But it's just a mess, really. Obviously, we've got a couple of signings through the door so far in January to bolster the squad, which is a positive. But on the pitch as it stands at the moment, the results have been so poor. The performances have been dreadful. And I don't even know where to start with the issues, to be honest, because there's so much stuff off the field as well.
Well, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Thomas Frank, in or out?
Out for me.
Oh, okay.
I really wanted Thomas Frank in the summer. I felt like he was a good stabiliser for what was a very hectic, kind of chaotic season last year with Ange. And I know he did obviously so well to bring us the trophy, but it felt like we needed someone who was a little bit more pragmatic, but obviously played good, exciting, attacking football at Brentford as well. And it felt like he was kind of improving as a manager as Brentford got more comfortable in the league. So I felt like he was ready for that jump up, but I don't think he's been able to scale up as much as I thought he was going to, really. And I feel like he just feels a bit lost at the moment. The football is really, really poor. We lack any sort of progression through the middle of the pitch. And obviously we've gone and signed Conor Gallagher, who I think is a good player, but I don't think really aids that too much. I'm sure we'll come on to him. But it's for me, I think he's got to go. I think the club will probably. It depends on what might happen against West Ham at the weekend. My inkling is that Spurs give him the season to kind of see it out and then reassess. But I'm not a fan of his at the moment. I didn't think it would come to this though, where Spurs fans will turn on him big time, and I think that's because some of the comments that he's made in the media, having a bit of a pop at the fans after the Fulham game, and obviously there was the whole incident with the Arsenal Cup last week and stuff like that, which just doesn't help when you're in the situation that you're in, which is again a complete accident, not his fault, all those kind of things. But it's just when so many other things are going so wrong at the club and going so wrong with him, he's just not helped himself out there at all. But yeah, for me, I really hope he can turn it around, but I just, with the way that the patterns of the results are going at the moment and the performances are just kind of getting worse, really. So I just don't see that personally. That's
the first time that the words Arsenal and Cup have been used in the same sentence for quite a while.
That's what I said after the game. At least he did well to find one, to be fair. And do you know what? It's like if other managers in years gone by, I think if it would have maybe dealt with that better, would have maybe kind of made a bit of a joke in the media about it. I'm not saying like an Arsenal trophy joke or anything, but would have been a bit more self-deprecating. But I think he got really defensive about it after the game, which just shows you at the moment. I think it's all just a bit too big for him. I think there's so much pressure and it's all just kind of like, it feels like it's swallowing up a little bit. And I really hope he can turn it around, but I'm just not convinced at the moment.
But I would say that a manager who hasn't got Kulusevski and hasn't got Maddison, hasn't got Kudus, hasn't got Bentancur now.
Solanke.
He's up against it. Okay, I would say that. I would also say this, and I bring you in, Andy, on this. At the start of the season, when we talked about Thomas Frank, and I wrote about Thomas Frank, the question that I asked was, can he make that leap as a person from what it's like going from a small pond to the ocean, going from Brentford to Tottenham, and it really is in terms of spotlight and focus. Ben just touched on it there. Is that part of the problem for Thomas Frank? Is he struggling just to cope with the fact that what you do and say at Brentford is completely different to what you have to do and say when you're manager of Tottenham?
Of course it is, but it doesn't help. I mean, hi Ben, by the way. What Ben just said there about him not making a joke about the cup, the Arsenal Cup, this is so trivial, I know. However, sometimes small details tell you a lot. I'm not surprised he's had a sense of humour failure, because everybody in this day and age is piling onto him. So he's probably terrified to make a joke about it, because if he does make a joke about it, then you're going to have 25,000 Spurs fans saying, I can't believe he's made a joke about that. They're our biggest rivals, blah, blah, blah. And if he doesn't make a joke about it, he has 25,000 Spurs fans saying, why didn't he just make a joke about it? The poor bloke can't win at the moment. And, you know, I say this, he's been one of probably the only Spurs manager I've ever wanted to really succeed. As a West Ham supporter.
Bizarre.
Yeah, because I dealt with him a lot, a few times at Brentford. Such an engaging character, really kind of comes across as an intelligent, forward-thinking football man and not afraid to engage on a human level as well. Lots of jokes, last year about about Brentford when they were doing well, and having a nice glass of red wine with his wife that night to celebrate this. So there's a human side to him. I just think there is a valid point that he's caught in the crossfire. But you just gone through those injuries, Ian. If you've lost Harry Kane, you've lost Son as well, and then you've brought in Solanke, who was doing a decent job, and Maddison as well, and then he's lost those players. It's really tough for him, and he's right under the cosh.
And Ben, what about the business that Tottenham have done? One of the things that I know I have friends who are Tottenham fans, and one of the things they often talk about is, especially under the Levy regime, is spending. We don't spend enough, and when we do spend, we don't pay the proper wages. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? Okay, so and that's part of Tottenham's recent history. But in the summer, they qualified for the Champions League. That brings money, okay? We thought the Europa League win would be a kind of defining moment in the trajectory of the club. It's not turned out that way. But they did spend some money, okay? So they spend it on Xavi Simons, and they spend it on Mohamed Kudus, and they spend it on Matthijs Tel, okay? Now, in my rudimentary maths, they spent the best part of about £130 million on those players. But they are 21 years old, 24 and 20. My question would be, are they the right players? Look at Manchester City. They need a lift mid-season, so they go and spunk a load of money on Semenyo, who's a proven Premier League player at the age of 26. And what a surprise, he scored a couple of goals already. Are Tottenham buying players for the future, Ben, when they should be buying players for now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's been an issue that predated the Lewis family kind of taking over now. Levy's always had that kind of problem when he's had control of the football club as well. When I look at Spurs' recruitment over the course of the last 5 years or so, or maybe 3 or 4 years, I don't think we buy bad players. Like, every player that kind of comes through the door, I'm always quite excited about. Like, Xavi Simons, I think, has had some really bright moments. He's obviously adjusting to the Premier League still. A little bit like what we're seeing with Florian Wirtz. I think Kudus, there was a bit of circumstances. Like, he probably did down tools a little bit at West Ham last year, to be fair. But you saw the season before that there's a quality player in there. Tell, I think we've seen sparks as well. But it's all about timing with Tottenham. Like, we don't capitalise on momentum at the right kind of times. We don't bring in the right sort of players at the right times. It's a bit like Gallagher, I kind of feel like at the moment. I think in isolation, I think Gallagher is actually a player that I've always liked. I think he's a good signing. I think he comes in and he's probably one of our better midfield options in that number 8. But he doesn't quite solve the issues that we've been having with our midfield. Like, we really lack any sort of progression. Spurs rank bottom in the Premier League so far for through balls this season. We need a number 6 that can kind of come in, take the ball off the centre halves and be brave and play through the middle. Gallagher's not that kind of player. So again, you're sort of still wondering, obviously, contrary to the point that you made about the fact that Gallagher is more experienced, obviously, and he is, in terms of profile and age profile and experience, he's the right sort of player for Tottenham to have. But again, there's still question marks about the actual fit and whether he's the right kind of profile that we need. So again, like with Spurs, I don't think we buy bad players. I think it's just that we don't ever balance it out with enough experience to balance out the younger players that we do bring in. Obviously, we brought in João Paulinho in the summer, who I think has had good games for us, and I think he's a leader and a character, but I don't think he's a long-term fix necessarily, because again, I think he's part of the problem when it comes to the issues that we're having in midfield, despite all the good things that he can offer. So yeah, I do think we need to bring in some more experience for sure, but I also do think with some of the younger players that have been brought in, I do believe in them. Like, there's enough there with like the likes of Bergvall, Archie Gray, those kind of guys to think that I think they will have a good future at Tottenham, and maybe in a couple of years' time we will be a really good side. But we've also got to add the other pieces into that to take the pressure off those kids, to be honest, and allow them to develop in the best way. So our recruitment, it's the strategy that I question. It's not necessarily the actual players. It's strategy and squad building. I think it's been the biggest issue in terms of our recruitment.
Just one question before I let you go, Ben. Is there any pining at all amongst the Spurs faithful for Ange Postecoglou?
No, not really, to be honest. Not really. I think there's more pining from Mauricio Pochettino, to be honest.
Okay, is that still ongoing?
Well, yeah, it's been ongoing ever since he left, to be honest, mate. I feel like he I do feel like with the World Cup coming up in the summer, if the club were to sack Thomas Frank and Pochettino manages USA at the home World Cup, depending on how they get on, it is the sort of PR win that Spurs would this board would try and do to get the fans back on side to go after Poch again. And I feel like our fan base have never really got over him. So in many ways, even though I would be sceptical because he's obviously not had the greatest time as a manager since leaving Tottenham, I feel like Spurs fans almost need him to be appointed to like scratch that itch. It's like the closure you never got with like a ex-girlfirlriend or something like that. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah, I think we all have that.
Any ex-girlfriends?
I don't think they feel the same way. No. Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. Mark, Poch, I mean, you refereed Poch many times. Poch back in the Premier League, good thing.
What, after Nottingham Forest? Oh, Poch, yeah. I loved him.
Yeah.
You know what was funny when he was at Southampton? He came to Tottenham, and everybody said he couldn't speak English. It was the biggest myth ever because his English was better than mine. And I'm like looking at him thinking, I thought you couldn't speak any English. I think it was one of them romantic things that he used to do, didn't he? He used to deny that he could understand English, but he's such a clever guy. And you know what? I enjoyed refereeing his teams, and I enjoyed his coaching staff that always had a smile on their face. They had this way about them. But it's interesting going back to a club like Tottenham, and it's always about the fairy tales, isn't it? Would it work? Would it work? USA will all agree that probably the USA to take them to the World Cup aren't really going to do much in this World Cup. Therefore, he's going to be available in the summer. But is it right that Tottenham go for the romantic, or are they trying to move forward as a club?
But to be fair, Ben, that team though, Ben, the team that he took to the Champions League final. I mean, I remember he used to go to the old White Hart Lane, Andy, to watch that team. He used to sit down in that low press box at White Hart Lane, very close to the field, and they were a very skillful team. But the physical power of that Tottenham team, I'm talking about, the Alderweireld and Vertonghen and
that's a good players, man.
Kyle Walker and Dele and Dembele and Eriksen and Son and Kane. That was a really athletic, powerful,
underrated, very underrated player, by the way.
Unbelievable football team, that, Andy. So you've got to say something, Andy.
Just that Pochettino smells nice. I'm told.
But most successful people in football,
I can smell nice. We can all
nice.
smell nice.
I noticed Mrs. D, she dropped me off at Chelsea's training ground once for a press conference, and Pochettino happened to be walking out. So we said hellos and everything. And being the absolute gent, excuse me, that he is, he came over to say hello to Hannah and to my daughter, and hugged them both. And they were both quite taken with him, my wife more so, and is still quite taken with him, said he smelled absolutely divine. And she's never forgotten that moment.
But
bring him back just for that.
Everything's relative to the other bloke in the car.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But that would be it. It's interesting you raise that, Ben, because you know what, again, other Tottenham fans do talk about that. So, maybe that's a dream ticket. Poch back at Tottenham, but not with Daniel Levy. Listen, Ben, thanks for being with us. We will have you on again, mate. Tottenham's a fascinating club, fascinating subject. Ben, thanks for being with us, mate. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks a lot, guys. Pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Take care. See ya.
Thanks.
Now, before we hear some more of Mark and Ian's thoughts, we're in partnership with Wix Trade Pro, and for any tradespeople out there, this one is for you.
That's right, because Wix Trade Pro is here to save you time and money.
Save 10% every time you shop in-store or online. There's no minimum spend, no hassle, just savings.
Amazing. And what's more, Wix Trade Pro want you to start the new year off right.
That's why they've introduced Smart Water, the award-winning forensic marking technology that's proven to deter tool thieves and make your gear traceable and recoverable. And all it takes is 3 simple steps.
That's right. First, mark your tools with the applicator and solution provided. Then place the deterrent signage on windows and doors before registering your marked tools so they can be identified. If only VAR made things that easy.
You're telling me.
To sign up and start saving, just download the Wix Trade Pro app today.
Let's talk about some refereeing issues. Let's do the good, the bad, and the balmy. Mark, I think it's quite an obvious one to do this week. So we're sitting here on a Wednesday morning. You probably all listen to this on a Thursday, but as we sit here Wednesday, last night, Tuesday, your Newcastle, Mark, got turned over 2-0 by Man City in the Carabao Cup at St James's Park. But there was an incident in the middle of that game which has been left us a bit baffled even by modern standards. I think Manchester City's new signing, Antoine Semenyo, had his second goal ruled out by VAR as Erling Haaland was judged to have been interfering with the goalkeeper from an offside decision position while standing a couple of yards off the goal line. The check itself took almost 6 minutes, and we still felt like we were guessing by the end of it. The goal was ruled out, of course. Mark, what are your thoughts?
First of all, 6 minutes for a VAR intervention is absolutely ridiculous. It shouldn't take 6 minutes to make any decision. And I think they need to bring in, or they need to start looking at, because that certainly affected flow of the game. 6 minutes, players certainly in the cold, they're having to replay further on in the game with, being cooled down, having to warm back up. I think it's a ridiculous thing. So I think they need to bring in a rule. If it takes the VAR more than 30 seconds on a subjective decision, allow the referee to go to the screen. The referee was standing in the middle of the field, standing there, trying to justify the delay to the players because the players were getting upset. You've got Stuart Atwell in a cold office in Stockley Park trying to figure out if Haaland, who's in an offside position, by the way, that was easy to judge, was Haaland interfering with Malik Chow's ability to play the ball? Because when I listened to the commentating, everybody was thinking it was Pope. When you saw one angle, you could probably justify thinking, well, Pope's there, he's close to Haaland, maybe he's interfered Pope's ability to play the ball. But that was quite clearly dismissed because Pope was going one way and the ball was going the opposite. So Pope really wasn't impacted by Haaland standing in an offside position. The only thing that we could discuss was Malik Chow standing next to Haaland.
Yeah, and could he it was Haaland preventing him getting to the ball to make the block.
What you see from Stuart
I
Atwell...
think maybe he was.
So what Stuart Atwell does is he focuses on one thing and he focuses on one angle. And when you look at that angle, you can make an argument to say, actually, Malik Chow was standing right next to Haaland. You can see Haaland's got a hold of Chow. Therefore, he must have affected his ability to play the ball. So he then, after 5 minutes, sends Chris Kavanagh, the referee, across to the screen, which he could have done a lot earlier to have that dialogue. Why not have that dialogue instead of having 4 minutes on his own? He could have another expert, the referee, discussing it as well, like we're seeing in rugby. He then shows him the same angle that he's justified his offside. If I was Chris Kavanagh, I would have said, give us other angles, please. Because there's an angle behind the goal, which I'm sure Stuart Atwell would have seen. Malik Chow has his arm around Haaland, and you can actually see him pulling Haaland towards Pope the opposite way the ball goes. Therefore, for me, understanding football, Malik Chow doesn't want to play the ball because he's got a hold of Haaland. So how are you affecting his ability to play the ball when he doesn't want to play the ball? All he's doing is playing the man, which we see at every corner kick. So if Malik Chow was making a gesture to the ball and Haaland stops him, I get that argument. But the Newcastle defender doesn't even want to play the ball. So why was the goal disallowed? It shouldn't have been disallowed, in my opinion.
And if somebody had said to you, Andy, how long have we had VAR now? What the hell, 5, 6, 7 years? If somebody had said to you in the run-up to VAR being implemented that this is where we would be in January 2026 with a group of players and spectators hanging around for 6.5 minutes on a freezing night in the middle of a really big game when the atmosphere is high, waiting on a 2 centimetre marginal offside decision. I don't think even we would have really believed that.
No, but I've got one big question. Mark, you just said that Stuart Atwell's VAR last night, and he was in a cold office.
Warm, cold, but I'm saying, it's cold. It's cold to the atmosphere.
This is the problem.
You don't know. As a referee, right? That's why I believe the referee should have a conversation with the VAR, and everybody should hear it. Because you couldn't hear what the VAR was saying. You can see him on the TV, and they were discussing. He was like sitting there in front of a screen. I'm thinking, make a decision. Still, no decision. They're chatting away. Still no decision. And there's poor Chris Kavanagh, still not involved in the process. He's not involved in the process.
What was telling as well was, did the semi-automated offside failed again, didn't it? I was reading that the semi-automated offside technology failed again.
It's been failing many times.
So That is just classically English as well, isn't it?
thing
You know,
about
it's
it.
like the wrong leaves on the line.
We've now got a 5 centimetre tolerance level, which is now what we're
I
finding
said
out.
on last week's podcast that my missus is on a 5 centimetre tolerance level for years, and these two didn't laugh.
That's my first joke. Yeah.
Fell flat. You know what I love most about VAR officials is the fact that they wear the kit. I just think they wear the referees' outfits.
In the office, yeah.
I just think, Ian, just to sum it up, I was all for VAR, massive believer, because it can save a referee's career. We've seen incidents in the past that have affected referees' careers. We've seen a Swedish referee with a Thierry Henry handball with Ireland, never refereed again. So it can save a referee's career. When we look at the processes that we've got now, I'm bored. We're now following so many protocols to come up with still the wrong decision. Let's get and learn from rugby. With cricket, cricket is so. I enjoy the cricket replays when they. I get excited because it works. Rugby works. It's actually because the referee leads the discussion instead of being led by the VAR, who. We all got told referees would referee and the VAR would support. Now it's the opposite. VARs are refereeing football matches. But I want to see what we see in rugby. They stand there, they have the conversation, and they come up with a decision, even if we don't agree with it. Like last night, and I'm sorry for harping on about this, the referee opens his microphone and speaks to the stadium and tells me what?
Yeah, I never wanted that.
It's so
tells us what? That he's disallowed it for offside. We know he's disallowing it for offside because he's told where he's disallowing it for offside. But at least if you're going to talk, say why I've disallowed it. He felt Malik Chow was interfered by Holland, and everybody's going, really?
So I think we all agree. We're going good, bad, balmy.
Well, it's got to be bad and also balmy that we're still talking about VAR for 6 minutes.
Well, I also just think, as a footnote, that lots of the sort of the longer sports like cricket are trying to, abbreviate themselves and increase the pace of football, which was once personified and symbolised by its quickness and its and they're doing something that's actually dragging it out at a time when the attention spans of teenagers are plummeting. They're making the game even longer and more complicated. So
I wasn't listening then. Oh, sorry.
You're on your phone when you're on.
I was on TikTok. Funny what you say there. You know how like games just go on forever now? Don't you feel like me? If I'm not at a game, or I'm not working, but I'm following the game, I do it in quite an old-fashioned way. So I'll do it on a website, whether it's BBC or whatever, and I'll be following the game. And when you get to 90 minutes now, you think, oh, brilliant. You used to think, oh, brilliant, 90 minutes, that's it. That, my team's won or they've lost. Now you think, well, they probably haven't, because there's probably 10 more minutes to play. Yeah. And that has changed the dynamic of how we all watch football. Now,
but if Stuart Atwell's cold, he could always wear Mark's jumper.
He certainly could, but he wouldn't get it.
Definitely haven't.
Because me and Stuart are still not friends after when I was working for Nottingham Forest against Everton, when he denied Nottingham Forest at least 2 penalties.
So we're going to talk about Tweetgate again.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Tweet. I wasn't behind the tweet, by the way.
I know who was behind the tweet.
Because the English was too precise for my language.
I know who wrote that tweet.
I know
who wrote that tweet, and they didn't particularly want to write it. I know that much. Right, Manchester United, more. I'm not going to say drama. Sacking a Man United manager doesn't count as drama anymore. It's almost like the falling of the leaves at the start of autumn. It's just something that happens once a year. Manchester United sack another manager, but they have named their interim. Although interestingly, not with that title, they've called Michael Carrick head coach. That's the title that he will carry.
Not manager. Is it definitely head coach or manager?
Between now and the end of the season. I, for one, am delighted they didn't go back for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That, frankly, would have been ridiculous. Why? You cannot pay a manager compensation to leave when you sack him and then take him back and give him another job. Well, Chris
Wilder was.
Sheffield United have done it 3 times with Chris Wilder, but genuinely speaking, it seems a bit strange. So I'm glad they didn't go down the Solskjaer route. Fletcher's 2-game audition, if that's what it was, didn't go terribly well. They've ended at Michael Carrick's
Just to put on something on Darren Fletcher. It must have been difficult for Darren. I like Darren as a person. I think he's a great guy and a great player. But his sons were on the verge of developing within the team. Amarin was giving them chances. It must have been hard for Darren to put them in the team because of his dad. You know what I mean? The accusations maybe in the squads you only playing them because they're your sons, and also from the outside in. It must have been difficult for their development also that their father was head coach of Manchester United.
Not ideal, but just didn't do Nigel and Brian Clough any harm, did it back in the day? But I know exactly what you mean. So Michael Carrick is in till the end of the season. He's brought Steve Holland with him, which I think is an excellent appointment. We can get to that in a minute. Andy, Michael Carrick, former West Ham player, of course. Safe pair of hands, or someone who will be going in there thinking, sod this, I'm going to get them into Champions League and get the job.
I wonder whether it's similar to the Frank Lampard appointment at Chelsea when Frank went back and took over that squad.
Which went terribly, of course.
Yeah. So again, is how much can a coach do with that squad? I mean, I know it's been said time and time again, but again, it goes back to recruitment. You look at the players that Manchester United have signed and the players that they're linked with, and you think, well, Carrick's not going to suddenly turn water into wine, is he? As a bloke, I mean, I've not spoken to him for a long time. Can only speak from my experience with him as a younger lad, and he was always very friendly. A lot because he was massive mates with Joe Cole. They used to go out in the nightclubs in Romford together when they were growing up, and he was always the quieter one. But in terms of what United need, I actually think, to me, it makes absolute sense. And he seems like such a sound and solid bloke, such a guy who will know his own mind, will do it the way he wants to do, won't be sort of kowtowed, I guess, because he's on a contract till the end of the season. And then there's that option to then take it onwards if it goes well. But it's just whether or not he's able to turn around. They're the most unpredictable bunch of players in the Premier League. I mean, at least like my lot, West Ham are consistent. They're consistently bad, but United are just incredible.
I'm going to ask you, Mark, about Carrick in a moment. I think that what the danger for United, I think, is I remember the Solskjaer interim period, right? After they sacked Mourinho, they got Solskjaer in out of that came left field. It was a Sam Wallace story at the Telegraph. I think he broke at the time. I remember thinking what a good story that was because no one saw it coming. Came in as an interim. That's all it was. But then did so well as an interim that it almost forced Man United's hand to give him the job, even though that was never the plan. And I remember thinking at the time, and I think other people wrote it, that this was actually feels like a good thing but it could end up being a really bad thing because you end up giving the job to someone who, in terms of his managerial pedigree, hasn't really got anything to back it up, to kind of make him deserve it. And that's what happened with Ollie. Ollie got the job on the back hear me out. Ollie got the job on the back of that bounce. And in the end, Ollie became another Man United manager, didn't quite make it, and was sacked. I don't think United can afford for that to happen again with Carrick. Much as we like Carrick and we know Carrick a little bit, and we'd think that Carrick will bring a sense of order to United, he'll certainly quieten down a lot of the noise around Man United, which will be helpful. He's a guy who had a go at Middlesbrough, did okay, and then got sacked. No shame in that. Happens a lot. I'm sure he'll come again. Has he got the pedigree as a Man United manager? Man United need to have a plan, and they should be working on that plan to appoint a manager in the summer. And however well Michael Carrick does, he should hand it over, as far as I am concerned, even if he gets them in the Champions League. Am I just being far too harsh there, Mark?
No, I think that's probably the plan.
It was a plan with Ollie, and they
yeah, but was Ollie slight?
And they got swept away by the feelings of the supporters and all the rest of it.
But am I wrong to say this? Then, I'm trying to recall back Solskjaer's days. He came from Molde. Is that correct?
Well, he'd failed at Cardiff.
He failed at Cardiff, but then went to Molde.
He was awful at Cardiff.
But Cardiff were going through a difficult time as well with the ownership and stuff that was going on.
In the Premier League when they hired him.
They did. Anyway. And I remember refereeing Cardiff as well, and they were disastrous on and off the field. He went to Molde and did well. Then he seemed to go and get that development. He came back a better manager, coach, whatever you want to call him. But he's come back better. So there was a bounce from Molde to Manchester United. I like Michael Carrick. I've met him many times.
I've
met him in Newcastle nightclubs, not Romford nightclubs. I've met him in Newcastle nightclubs. And I've also met him working as a pundit for Amazon. And he's a very nice guy. He's a Geordie.
Well, first of all, we need to know that the Newcastle nightclub story. Which one was it?
C. He tapped us on the shoulder. And I was like, all right, Michael.
So hang on. So are you refereeing at the time?
No, I might have been a younger referee, should we say?
Right, come on.
No,
Tell the story.
Did he buy you a drink, or you buy him a drink?
He offered, but I declined.
When it's right, Andy, when Mark gets like this, it means that there's a fucking really good story.
No,
there's a really
I would
good
love
story.
to kill it. I would love to kill it, but
his wife might be listening, or even worse, his daughter.
No. That's how I met him there. But as a person, I think he's a very clever guy. The way he speaks and the way he talks about tactics and about the game.
He studied,
I refereed him, but listen to him from outside, because his Middlesbrough experience was different. What I'm saying about Ollie had the bounce from Molden and comes in from that successful period. Michael's coming in from a less successful period. Yeah, Middlesbrough, if you're a Middlesbrough fan, Middlesbrough he did really well with Middlesbrough. Then Middlesbrough's ambition was to get back to the Premier League. In the end, they didn't get back to the Premier League, and he was replaced. Like you said, there's no shame in being sacked. But he's sacked, and then he's coming to one of the biggest clubs in the world that we talk about. It's not just the playing of Manchester United, it's also everything around Manchester. Yeah, you'll know certain bits because of his past with Manchester United, but he's coming in, for me, as a head coach of Manchester United in a bit of a negative way, where I thought, like, Ollie, okay, he's been out of work as a head coach or a manager, whatever we want to call him, for the last few years, but still had that bounce from his previous. But what you're saying is because he's being paid off, Ollie's doesn't deserve that chance, and Michael deserves a chance.
I just don't think they should have gone back to somebody who'd failed before. But I think, picking up on something you said before, Andy, about you can't make bad players good players, and you're right. But you can make teams play better with good coaching. And I think in Steve Holland, Michael has done a very, not just a smart thing, but something that points to his sense of lack of ego, in that he's quite happy to bring someone in who he knows is probably, in terms of a coach, a better coach than him. And he's thought, right, I'm going to be the guy who's going to come in and calm this thing down, because it's got out of control again. And this guy is going to fix some of the problems on the field. Steve Holland obviously got history with Gareth Southgate in England, and obviously at Chelsea as well. Yeah, I think it's a very clever thing.
He's brought Jonathan Woodgate in as well.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a clever thing to do.
Just going back to the original point, though, when you talk about, United need to have a plan and whatever. Wasn't that the idea with Ruben Amorim?
Well, of course.
Yeah. So that clearly didn't work.
No. So
it kind of makes where are they actually going to go? For the, if that way didn't work, let's try this way. So
somebody mentioned Roberto De Zerbi to me 2 days ago. Chris Wheeler's written about that in the Mail today. I noticed. I mean, that to me, my God, you might as well put a bomb in the place.
Yeah.
I mean, De Zerbi.
I heard that the Chelsea were interested or was sniffing around, but he won't leave. He's at Marseille, isn't he? He won't leave halfway through a season.
Well, Brighton couldn't wait.
Kind of thinking maybe they've had a bit of a result there, because he, like you say, he's a firework.
He did well at Brighton, but they couldn't wait to get him out the door. Because he's combative. He's an arguer. He wants everything his own way. It's not going to work at Man United, where they want a head coach.
Didn't work for Alex Ferguson, did it?
No, completely disaster. But the modern Man United, that's not going to work. Yeah. But in a structure.
That's the interesting point, that Carrick goes in as head coach, as they're all head coach now, not manager.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that everybody talks about. Fergie this, and they need another Fergie, but you won't get someone going in with that level of domination. Now, that level of power, they have to sort of deal with the boredom with Jim Ratcliffe and people like that.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to watching Manchester United in the next few weeks, because I think the pressure that's come from certain people within the club, the sporting directors, have said, we want to play this style of football. It's all right playing this style of football, but you need results. And it'll be interesting over the next few weeks. A, if Michael Carrick plays the style that Manchester United want to play, and B, to get the results, because are they going to sign players in the January window?
And does the lack of ego hold him back in terms of Man United long term? Because do they need a manager who is suitable and a big enough character to stand at the top of that club and do all the berating and the moaning and the kind of the us against the world stuff that really helped them to be so successful so many years ago? Because Arteta's good at that.
You certainly
Arsenal, he's very good at that.
You certainly do need to be a type of person.
Yeah.
Finally, Andy, because we're going to wrap the show up in a minute, one of West Ham's more notable results this season was at Old Trafford, 1-1 draw. I think you came up. You went there with your eldest. You came and had a cup of tea at our house the day after. How does it feel to go to United as an away fan these days? Because to me, it feels like where everybody used to go and think, we'll just have a day out and take our beating and go home. Even if you're a West Ham fan, you kind of go with a little hope these days. Am I right?
No. Hope's never been with me to an away game. She's always been busy.
I do remember that time you came up to, I'm not going to tell all the details of this story, when you came up to mine in Manchester 25 years ago with all your mates. Wacky was one of them.
Yeah, and Tracker and
it was for the FA Cup.
Yes.
FA Cup time, wasn't it? You all turned up at my flat. It was a lunchtime kick-off or something.
Yes.
Turned up at my flat about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, I've got all these lads coming, so I better get some breakfast out. Got some croissants out and some coffee and some orange juice. Well, suffice to say that your mates were not interested in any of that.
The beer was open very swiftly.
You were using my glass dining table to take the tops off your beer. And then got to Old Trafford and got done 6-0. You're all back on the M1 by about 50 minutes into the game, weren't you?
I remember going to West Brom one time when we were 3-0 down after 15 minutes, but we couldn't leave for the M6 because the car was boxed in the car park, so we had to stay. But we came back to draw 3-3. But no, I never go with hope. Anything away from home is a massive bonus. However, going right back to what we started with, West Ham do sometimes play better away from home because they're not in that monstrosity.
Yeah.
By pure chance, I bumped into Ray Lewington yesterday, who's now happily retired. Roy Hodgson's former assistant at England and at Crystal Palace. And he was even saying to me how away teams go to that ground and they just think we've got half a chance here.
West Ham.
To West Ham. They go to West Ham.
Yeah.
They go to West Ham, think got half a chance. But Old Trafford is
only
still
half a chance.
Old Trafford is still a pretty awe-inspiring place. Despite all the rain coming off the roof and the fact that it's supposed to be it's the walk up to it, especially for night games where you see the cantilever roofs. I think that's what they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cantilever, those big steel beams in the mist at night time.
As you go down Matt Busby Way.
And walk up from the tram station. You still get that sense of, oh, wow, this is a proper stadium. And Everton, just as a side note, the new Everton ground is like that. We went up there for the night game this time with the big neon signs and everything, and it looming up over you has that presence. Old Trafford is still... It's a shame the terraces have gone, but I'm such a dinosaur. The Stretford End, the North Bank at Highbury used to be really, really quite daunting.
All true. Andy, lovely to see you. Finally, we've been together on this podcast. It won't be the last time, and next time it happens, I promise you I'll be sitting right next to you when Gordon is back in this chair. Right, that's it, guys. That's it for the latest episodes of Whistleblowers. Thanks very much for being with us. We'll be back on Tuesday for the next instalment, of course. Until then, don't forget to follow us on your social accounts, and please send in your questions for Gordon, myself, and Mark. Whistleblowers@dailymail.com is where you can send those emails. Our social accounts on X, it's Blowers Pod. On TikTok, it's Whistleblowers Podcast. And on Instagram, it's Whistleblowers Pod. Leave us some feedback. Leave us some comments. Send us your questions. We need your questions. We rely on them. Mark, I know you won't have bought it. Any chance you can blow a full-time whistle?
Thank you very much for watching Whistleblowers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, episodes every Thursday and Tuesday. And on a Sunday, you'll get our clip of the week.